Good morning, aloha. My name is Rob Hack, and my company is Insight Inter-Asia, and I'm on the board of the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, or we call HPEC. And HPEC is one of 61 district export councils in the United States. You'll see that term sometimes. District Export Council, DEC, is a DEC. And so some of the larger states have more than one DEC, but here in Hawaii we have the Hawaii Pacific Export Council. And that is a quasi-government entity, a nonprofit entity that is part of the Department of Commerce infrastructure to help companies export. And it is our mission on the Hawaii Pacific Export Council to teach small companies about exporting and to help them export. And just so that we're clear, what is an export? An export is to a foreign country. An export is not from Oahu to Maui. An export is not from Hawaii to Oregon. But an export would be Hawaii to Japan, or Hawaii to Brazil, or Europe, or what have you. So when we're talking about exporting, that is what we're discussing today. And the topic of today's seminar is logistics, and logistics is basically shipping, but there's lots of ways to do that. And so we have two wonderful speakers today, probably two of the top experts on logistics in all of Hawaii. So before we get going too much further, I need to read a very brief disclaimer to everybody that obviously we have cameras here. We have essentially three audiences for our seminars. The first audience is you here all live watching us, and thank you very much for attending. The second audience is an online webinar, which is mostly our neighbor island friends attending live. And then the third is we video record these seminars and we put them on our YouTube channel. And DBET also archives them on their YouTube channel. So very quickly, I'd just like to show you our archive is now over 60 videos here where these seminars are recorded and put on here on the YouTube channel. So I would strongly recommend you go back and look through the various topics. We've done things such as marketing in Japan, export financing, legal issues, contracts for exporters, what have you. There's a very deep archive here, and I think we're quite proud of it. So please go back and look at that. I would also like to point out a show that I have been doing for about a year now is called Exporting from Hawaii on the Think Tech Network, where I bring in guests and we talk about various aspects of exporting from Hawaii. So the point being, with the disclaimer, any questions you ask might be part of a public forum because we're recording all of this and we're live on the webinar, as well as your face may show up on the video. So please be aware of that. Very quickly, I'd like to cover DBET. We are able to put on these seminars due to a very generous grant we receive annually from DBET, who in turn has received a grant from the Small Business Administration in Washington. This is a competitive grant that all of the states are after, and Hawaii has been very fortunate enough to receive the grant for several years in a row now, and we've just applied again for the 2020 grant. So DBET grants us this the Hawaii Pacific Export Council this money every year allows us to put on these seminars and then do one-on-one mentoring with small companies and teach them about exporting. So as part of the grant from SBA, it's called a HiSTEP program, the State Trade Expansion Program. And in Hawaii, we slightly rebrand that to HiSTEP for the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program. And the idea is to get companies out into the world and exporting and teaching them about exporting and getting product from Hawaii out into the world. There's 3 parts of the STEP program, HiSTEP program. One is pavilions, where DBET buys space at various trade shows where they think that there will be buyers coming from different parts of the world to that trade show. And Hawaii companies can get into those pavilions quite reasonably priced, rather than if you were going in by yourself and it wasn't being subsidized by DBET. It's a really excellent program. Probably the biggest trade show that they attend, and you can get space in a pavilion, is the Tokyo International Gift Show, which is every September. And that has approximately 50 to 60,000 visitors to that trade show. And you can get space in there quite reasonably compared to if you were doing that on your own. So that's pavilions. Then we have the Export Readiness Program, ERP, under HiSTEP, which is more the seminars and the mentoring part of things that allows Hawaii Pacific Export Council and other members, partner members such as SBDC or the Patsy Mink Center, Innovate Hawaii, and others to mentor your small companies on various aspects of exporting. And then finally, if your company has over $200,000 in revenue annually and you are able to show a good export plan, you can apply for company assistance as part of the HiSTEP program. It's up to, this past year is up to $7,500, where you can be reimbursed for some of your travel costs, shipping sample products or getting your products tested in a foreign market, your website or other marketing materials translated into a foreign target market language, what have you. So that's a really excellent program. But again, you have to have company revenues of at least $200,000 to be able to apply for that. So that is the HiSTEP program. This seminar that you're attending today and our final seminar of the season is in 2 weeks. That's Marketing in Korea, in this room at 9 a.m. on June 27th. That'll be our last formal seminar of the HiSTEP 2019 season, and then we start rolling into the 2020 season. And usually, if you're applying for company assistance or any of those types of activities, you typically do that by the end of the calendar year for the following year. So please be looking out for information from DBET coming out later in the, I guess, late summer or autumn about the status of the 2020 program. So before we move on, are there any questions about that? Let me show you here. You can find out all this information on Invest.Hawaii.Gov, and there is a, if I can get it here, this tab here, exporting, will talk in many more detail about the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program. And here's some of the pavilions at these expos that you could attend. So you might say, well, why would a Las Vegas gift show be part of exporting? That's because DBET has determined that there are many international buyers coming to that show that you could meet with. Okay? Any questions before we move on? Great. So our seminar today is focused on logistics, which you all know. And as I mentioned, we have two really fantastic speakers lined up today. The first speaker is Brian Suzuki of the Hawaii Air Cargo Company. He's been in logistics for how many years?
52 years.
52 years. So you're not going to find many people who have more experience than Brian has. So I'd like to invite Brian to come up and give his presentation about logistics. And then when that's done, we're going to hear from Peter Stams, who is also on the board of HPEC currently, and he's from UPS, and he's going to speak very specifically about what UPS does, whereas Brian's talk will be a bit more about logistics in general.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before I get started, I wanted to recognize former Speaker of the House, Calvin Say, is in the audience. Please raise your hand, Speaker Say. And he's been on trade missions. We've been on trade missions before, sending things to Japan, and he also imports his business. Besides being a legislator, he imports things too. So thank you very much for being here. Actually, I was told that Export University is not part of the it's not part of this class. I teach another portion, but the Export University one, they videotape my my talk, so I don't talk anymore. They just show the video. So, at any rate, let's see. Oh, forgot that. This is a clicker. I'm just using it today as a pointer, but my clicker is going to be Rob hacked. Thank you. Another small world is that because I've been around so long, I was been around before UPS came to Hawaii. As a matter of fact, when they first came to Hawaii, they had a lot of, they only covered Oahu. But people on the mainland, their people on the mainland didn't know Kailua Oahu to Kailua Kona. But all the neighbor island stuff, I was contracted to handle for UPS. They were one of my biggest customers way back. And we did, hire drivers on Big Island and all around the state. But what happened was they ended up hiring my drivers when they took over the whole island. But at any rate, Peter, thank you. He'll be giving you a lot of stuff. I'm sure that was even before Peter was born, maybe. Okay, go ahead to the next one. Methods of shipping. Okay. We're on an island, therefore, you all know we don't have trains or tunnels you can drive over under the ocean and all that, but we have ocean and air, basically. And if you notice, 98% of all items coming into the state and going out of the state comes by boat or goes by boat. We handle 2% or less than 2%, 1.7 something percent. DBID had statistics on that. But you'd be surprised what comes in by air. Normally you think, oh, air freight must be rush, emergency, perishable, a lot of things. They are that. But believe it or not, my company's business, and I'm not trying to sell Hawaii Air Cargo, talking about all the different freight forwarders. I'll explain who we are, but there are things that you wouldn't think about. Construction material makes up 60% of my clientele. We bring in from carpets to floor tiles, all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't think comes by air. But a lot of times, air is not necessarily expensive, it's cheaper. And I wanted to also mention that air freight is not regulated. Ocean freight is somewhat regulated. Therefore, tariffs have to be filed. We have our own, within our company, tariffs that we try to follow. We have people that ship by air because actually it is cheaper. When you go to a package that's 200 pounds or a freight that's 200 pounds, if you put them on the boat, it might cost you more than coming in by air, believe it or not. Because we have daily consolidations coming in from the mainland, and I'm going to be talking mostly about export, but same thing, we have to bring in supplies for your companies to make something or produce something to export. So we bring in all kinds of things for manufacturers, for, like I say, construction companies. But ocean freight, normally, you can take it, they consolidate it on the mainland, they bring it in containers. Going from Honolulu to Asia, for instance, ocean freight, they don't take small shipments. You gotta load containers, from 20-foot containers to 40-foot, 45-foot, et cetera, to get any service. some people also from here consolidate, send it to the West Coast, and then they have consolidations from there that go to Japan. For instance, Hawaiian Host is one of my big customers. We ship their products all around Japan, all around Asia except Japan. Japan uses their Gardena production, and so what happens is that they consolidate stuff. The only thing they don't make that they make in Hawaii is the pineapple, the white chocolate pineapple flavor one. They make it here. We fly that to LA to have that go in the ocean container and send it up. The ocean freight from LA to Asia, because there's so much more cargo, it's cheaper than from Hawaii to ship the same ocean container to Japan, to Asia. So anyway, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So if you know, you have that handout. If you haven't gotten one, I think I left a bunch outside. You can go pick one up. But it's the same thing. Ocean forwarders, like I say, can load stuff up into containers. Coming this way, you can give them less than container loads. Going to Asia, a lot of times they got to go from here back to the West Coast and then over the Pacific. The rest is self-explanatory. Next, Rob. Okay, there's some questions about ocean forwarding. You all got to know that it's not cut and dry, so you have to learn by talking to one of the representatives about, what you should ask. You should ask rates, and don't forget, confusion is always when you're doing international. It's like pounds versus kilos. You get a lot of mistakes. People say, oh, it's 50 cents a pound, but then it's not 50 cents a kilo. 50 cents, it might be $1.10 a kilo. So you got to keep that in mind when you talk to your customers that's trying to buy your product. And you should know what it'll cost before you make. That's why we work with DBED and Department of Agriculture for their, like the Tokyo Gift Show. We've been contracted over the years to help bring or send the samples out to the trade shows throughout Asia. And we try to work with the people that are selling products to make sure that they know what it will cost. We had a show here, a reverse trade mission. We had people from France come in, trying to buy Hawaii product. A lot of them were eager, but we had some real problems when they had stuff going to by ocean freight. You had to go through the Panama Canal, all the way around, connections. It's not one boat. You got to connect along the way. And by the time they got it, it was at least 30 days later. And some of the products were not good to take that long. So actually on that reverse trade mission, we didn't sell anything, although we knew what the rates were. As a matter of fact, people don't realize air freight and ocean freight, it's directional, okay? Going from here to Tokyo versus Tokyo to Honolulu. Tokyo to Honolulu, the rates are 3 times the rates from Honolulu. This is air freight. Why is that? It's because we have so many wide-body tourists coming in from Asia, whether it's from Shanghai, Beijing, Tokyo, Osaka, wherever, Korea. They come in droves to come to Hawaii. Jumbo jets, a lot of space in the belly. I will show you some photographs of that. But because we have a lot of space going out and we don't have too much manufactured products to ship out, we end up getting special rates. All the airlines are fighting to get a pound of freight on their flight. So they give us some pretty good rates, and the rates does vary. So you have to know how to shop around for the rates. Okay, we talked about discounts. People that ship regularly may get discounts, like Peter might tell you later on how to get a contract rate from UPS, et cetera. And then insurance, there are a lot of things that insurance will cover, but a lot of things insurance won't cover. Air freight, again, I told you, is directional. We use passenger aircraft. We have all cargo aircrafts. Freight forwarders some of them have their own planes, not to Hawaii, but to other places. And integrators, which is like the UPS, FedEx, brand X. Anyway, These are air containers. Now, unfortunately, from here to Japan or here to Asia, none of the carriers offer container rates. I'm showing you this because this container there, it says RKN. It's an insulated container. And some of those RKN, you have to rent them because it has a slot in the corner, right on this corner, that you can put dry ice in it. And some will regulate with a temperature, a thermostat that would, keep the the temperature constant. Certain things, medicine, a lot of things like that, does require close watch on the temperature. And it's hot here. I'll tell you a story too. We were shipping chocolates to Seoul. When they opened the new Incheon airport, the Korean Airlines invited the chocolate shippers, and I became the tour leader for them. We went to Incheon airport, and it took from the time the plane landed to the time the cargo got into the terminal, taking about 30 minutes. And it sits outside. It's a 50-minute drive. So it sits outside for about 15 minutes. They pull them together, and then they take it in. Now, for those that have been to Korea or from Korea, you know that wintertime, it's cold. Summertime, it's hot. Our chocolates would melt or freeze, and it would be not sellable because the cocoa butter, it'll cook or it'll freeze, and it gets that white sheen on top. It looks like it's got mold. So it's unacceptable. So when we went there, found out that we needed to give the airline special instructions that when it arrives, make sure you have a driver with a tug to take that container of cargo into the cargo terminal. And in the cargo terminal, there are 5 temperature climates. Ambient, meaning whatever's outside, minus 10 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Celsius, different types. And we chose 19 degrees, which is like air-conditioned room, about 75 degrees. And but all those things are in part of your product. Whatever you have, if it's perishable, please work with your shipping company. Okay. Again, we use passenger flights. It goes into the belly of the plane, of a wide-body plane, and for which domestically, if you're going to or from the mainland, you can get container rates. So whether you put 1,000 pounds in an LD3 container, a smaller container, or 2,000 pounds, for me, I ship every day several big containers from the West Coast, consolidating in Italy, and then so we can mix and match the cargo. So we usually get, about 5,000 pounds in a big container, or 2,000 pounds in a small container, and then so our price per pound gets better the more we can fit in. But we have to accommodate that we have mixed customers with different types of cargo. And so using the lower deck, we can get to any kind of place around the world. Okay, this is in a cargo aircraft only, which is what UPS, FedEx, and Pacific Air Cargo, they use. Pacific Air Cargo uses a 747, 6 days a week. FedEx and UPS, they use, I think, 767 planes. Also, daily we have Amazon coming with a daily 767 aircraft. They have grown a lot, but they come in every day with a big load. So next slide. Then you have your integrated carriers, and they fly all around the world. Now the things that when you compare, you look at their website, you try to figure out what it costs. Don't forget, the integrators can pick up, clear customs, and deliver your package. That's a lot. For a forwarder like myself, if I were to get a shipment, whether it's 50 pounds or 250 pounds, I can quote an airport-to-airport rate with fuel, security surcharge, pickup, delivery, well, even delivery. But I got to add on everything, including customs. But it's already included in these integrators. So even though it might seem expensive, it might be a bargain too. So keep that in mind. And they're very good. I don't compete against them, but I do in some respect. Because if a customer has a lot of small packages on UPS, by consolidating, like coming this way, I get a lot of people that use ground service via UPS to them in Hawaii, but care of my LA office. And then we will consolidate the stuff and bring it in, deliver, 200 pounds every time that they have 200 pounds. And that could be every day for some retailers. Okay, next. Okay, like I say, ocean and truck are somewhat regulated. In Hawaii, we have a PUC that used to regulate common carriers. The ocean cargo, the Inter-Island Young Brothers, they would have to file tariffs, rates. They still do. But the way companies, the trucking companies have been getting around it is they've been using contracts. They contract individual companies. Even though they might contract 1,000 companies on the island, they got a contract so they can get away from being a common carrier so they don't get a PUC license, which actually costs a little bit more. Next, air freight, again, was deregulated in 1975. So anything coming in by air, you better, it's a buyer beware too, okay? Because people can charge whatever they want. If they tell you, a forwarder tells you, I can give you 50 cents a pound, you don't care about that. You want to know what the total charges for freight is. I had a customer who I said, I can audit the bills for them. And he said, no, I'm getting 50 cents a pound. Your rate is 86 cents. That time was 86 cents a pound. And she kind of kicked me out of the office. But about 6 months later, she wanted me to join an organization that she was active in, which we were already members. But she said, you want to review my shipping? I said, I'll be glad to. I don't charge for that. But anyway, she gave me 1 month's air billing for air. She was getting 50 cents a pound, but it didn't include the pickup, delivery, freight forwarding, and then I'm going to tell you about what they call chargeable or actual weight. We charge, there's a formula. So anyway, there's a lot of points in there. We can go to the next stop. There is a dimensional weight factor. Domestic, we use the divisor. Rob, can you go to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, dimensional weight. Post office uses that here. Length and girth, not more than 108 inches. Anything larger than that, they won't accept. And usually it's up to 70 pounds for U.S. Postal Service. The thing is that with international, the divisor, the normal divisor is 166. You have length times width times height in inches divided by 166. If that answer comes more than the actual weight, you got to use that. That lady who was shipping, paying that 50 cents a pound, I would save her 5 shipments in 1 month. I would have saved her $4,000. And my rate was higher initially, but mine included pickup, delivery, fuel. On the other hand, the company she was used instead of 194 domestically to divide, was using 94. And that's 94 goes into anything much more times than 194. So she was paying for maybe double the freight weight, chargeable weight charge. And plus she was paying a higher price per pound with everything added on. So $4,000 for 7 months that she used them before. That day she called the sales rep, "You using 94? The guy said, yes, I could hear the conversation. So she changed and used us. But I'm just trying to tell you, beware of what's out there, because you never can tell. And not beware, but the FedEx and UPS for domestic, they use 166, and they use 147, I think, for international. So every company has different types of these methods of figuring out dimensional weight. And you gotta, if you have something light, please remember that you might have to pay for the air. Okay. Next. This, I'm not going to go into that much, but when you do make your deals with a buyer, you have to know these international terms, because a lot of times, people say, it's just, X-Works is just delivering to the carrier. You take your freight to United Airlines, and that's it. Your responsibility is over. And the buyer has to pay for the air freight, customs clearance and everything else, as opposed to DDP, which is all the way to the door of the buyer. So you got to make sure that you know, because this is going to cost a lot more than this for you if you had to do that. Yeah? A lot of times it's cost insurance and freight to that airport that they choose to have it shipped to. So again, these terms are important on your dealings with the customer, the buyer. And okay, enough of that. All these things that some companies, a lot of times you got to worry about documentation. They charge extra, pickup and delivery, handling, customs clearance. Some airports, like Narita Airport, might have a handling charge, and it's just to move it on a forklift from one place to the other. But they may charge, I think the charge, last I heard, it's been a while, but they were charging about like 80 some odd cents per kilo for that handling charge. Now, per piece rather, I'm sorry, 80 something cents per piece, not kilo. So what happens is that when we ship chocolate candies, instead of making it 90 boxes going on that invoice, we would say one piece said to contain 90 pieces. And we shrink wrap to make it one. So to get one 80 some odd cents or 80 something cents charge as opposed to 90 times 80 some odd cents. So you got to watch out for those hidden charges, and your buyer may or may not know that. And a lot of times I suggest that you leave your buyer to get it through their customs and then delivery. Delivery in a lot of the Asian countries are still regulated, so they might be very expensive. I shipped a grand piano for a friend of mine, and she's a big pianist in Japan. She came over here, found an antique, she had it created, wanted to ship it. It was a grand piano, but the freight charges was only something to the neighborhood, was less than $1,000 to get to Tokyo. But to get it cleared and delivered, and she lived in just outside of Tokyo side of Yokohama, cost her almost $2,000 for the delivery. The customs clearance was cheap, but because delivery was still regulated, and you got to hire a piano licensed person, company that licensed to deliver pianos. I don't know why, but they have that kind of stuff. So you got to know some of those things. And but what a difference! The freight was so cheap compared to the delivery costs. And again, I put down there pounds versus kilos. Beware of that. Okay, next. Okay, I'm just going to hit on some of the experiences I've had. One, you see this fish? At one point, we didn't know, I handle a lot of fish. I came from an old school company. Some of you may or may not have heard, Pan American World Airways. And we were shipping from Thailand to the mainland tropical fish. This is a ocean saltwater fish to pet shops throughout the United States. But by the time it comes to Honolulu, the flight will go Bangkok, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Honolulu, then go to LA and consider, go on. But one of my jobs at Pan American checked the live fish, and they had a mortality rate. Half of the fish would die in transit. One, for the cold, two, is that not enough oxygenation to keep them going. But that was acceptable because they could harvest the fish real cheap. Then Hawaii got involved with it. And you know, right now, this year, there's controversy about limiting amount of fish you can take out of the ocean, which is fine. But ocean freight from Hawaii, ocean freight, fish, saltwater fish from Hawaii is one of the bigger exports. We ship these tropical fish to Europe, all around Asia. As a matter of fact, Europe, some of the American carriers, we want to use American. I'm an American carrier. I'm a vet. I'm a minority. We try to take care of each other. But I have problems with a United Airlines connection out of JFK to Europe. But I can get a cheaper rate via Korean Airlines to, say, Frankfurt, Germany, or to Paris, via Tokyo, Korea. They can then connect. So sometimes routing might be important because of that kind of handling cost, or it could be some of the foreign carriers can get us better rates. And not all carriers charge the same fuel surcharge. So, keep that in mind. So anyway, that's one of the things that we're shipping a lot, and it's a lot. Some guys on weekends, working just Saturday, Sunday, weekends, they, from harvesting this fish, they make about $6,000 a month. And of course, they get paid only for what survives the trip. So they have it all logged, but there's a lot of this kind of stuff going out, to all places around the world. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's another story where this is Greenpoint Nursery's packing plant for anthuriums. Working with the state, there's a company that came in from Japan, Ito-Yokado. Doesn't mean much, but they're the 7-Elevens of Japan. And what happened was they wanted to put at all of their branches bouquets, small bouquets of anthurium, because anthuriums last long. If you know how to take care of it, cut the bottom every week or something, it'll last forever. So, because the people couldn't speak Japanese, and I can speak a little, so Ag department called me up, can you take them on a tour of the anthurium farms on the Big Island, which I did. And then we got pricing. They wanted it pre-packaged, 3 flowers and 2 greens, or 2 flowers and 3 greens. Anyway, we had a price list, and I figured out the shipping costs every week. Then they said, oh, perfect, we want to order. Okay, then they said, okay, how much you want to order? 10,000 per week. Nobody can produce that kind of 10,000 numbers. I said, why you want to do 10,000? He said, we have 167 7-Elevens just in Tokyo alone, and I cannot just supply one company, I got to supply all of them. Well, that was too much of an order, nobody could take it, so we did away with that. We also did things like what they call puamilia, which is your puamilia. We see it all over the place. It's a scented flower. Plumerias, okay. Plumerias, we did a test, 3,000 shipments. We did 3 tests to go to Tokyo from Honolulu. Worked with the farms, had to clean, after they pick it early, as soon as the sun comes up, they're picking it. We take it and they wash it in a sort of like a part some chemical, but it kills all the bugs on it. It's not that bad. It's, so I had a senior club up in past Waihawa to do it, which they were paid for. They would separate it, try to dry it out, and pack it all in the same morning, and then we would ship it to Japan and see how long they would last. And they had a shelf life in Japan for the plumerias for 1 week. And boy, they were happy. And again, comes down, instead of 3,000, they wanted 10,000 a week. Because, once you get it, everybody's going to want it in Japan. So unfortunately, that didn't go after they said that they have to get 10,000 to make it work. And so all those things, we try to participate, but it becomes an issue when they want big numbers. So this is Greenpoint Nursery. That couple over there, they're the ones that came in from Japan. But yeah, they were excited. They got new flower. But now, Hawaii Sanitarium is not selling internationally as well because we have Netherlands. In Netherlands, the government of Netherlands gives a subsidiary. They pay for 2 inspectors to live in the Netherlands, Japanese inspectors to live in the Netherlands. And what they do is they do the pre-inspection, so there's no rejection. Everything is pre-inspected in the Netherlands. It gets over there, no problem with any bugs because they don't even check it again. Where our stuff gets over there, the biggest thing, the fear for the buyer saying, if there's a bug, they're going to gas it, kill it. And so they don't want to take a chance. I said, the shippers are willing to ship, and they'll replace the ones that have been rejected. But no. So we lose out anthurium business to Amsterdam and to Australia. Hawaii has a lot better, to me, flowers. But they're looking for business, so they don't want any kind of rejection. Okay. Okay, this is China Hotel and Food Expo in Beijing. this is the first one. I just tell you, we had, okay, that's what, DBAD, Department of Ag, if Department of Ag gets in there because of if you have a product that has some agriculture thing, like chocolate candy, you have your Mac nuts, you can buy it, so they help out. But they pay for setting up the booth, so you don't have to pay for that. They hire these girls, so you can see the bilingual girls. Neil Arakaki, who's the president of the Hawaiian Candies and Nuts, he usually is a contractor on behalf of DBED and Department of Agriculture, but he does all of that. They have, anyway, they put up signs in Chinese or whatever language, and they also, that you talked about the expo, the gift show in Tokyo, every year he's there, Neil is there. But this story here, this couple, it's not a real couple. This lady is from Hong Kong, and this guy's a vice president of a company called the French Gourmet. Started in a basement down by 4th Street. We would pick up frozen dough from them, and we were shipping in small boxes containing dry ice and ship it to Okinawa, Japan. It's frozen dough for the buyer. There's no waste, because what it does is you just thaw it out, it rises, and you bake it. You don't have to prepare it. And they get some really good stuff, all kinds of pastries. So they went to this first China Hotel Food Expo. And I was in charge of shipping all the samples, whatever we were going to do. And the US Pavilion was on the whole 4th floor. Sunday, we're trying to prepare our booth. First of all, you see this thing here? We had flowers. Department of Ag donated 600 pounds of cut flowers and greens. They hired a decorator in China. The guy shows up with a vase this round, that deep. Okay, obviously it couldn't, these plants couldn't go, so we had to go to our hotel room, get our rubbish cans, bring them over there, put it in the rubbish can and tie it to the sides, the corners. But it looked like a jungle. We had all of that, And so anyway, going back to the French Gourmet, I was hand trucking a bunch of frozen dough to the next door hotel. We had agreed they would bake it there for them. But here I'm going out of that show area. Security guard there says, "You can't take this out." No. I said, "Why? We're just going to have it baked and bring it back." The show is in a foreign trade zone, so it's not like you're in that country. You're still outside. And they wouldn't let us take it outside. And for the French Gourmet, that was a whole show, to bake it, to have samples given out. So we couldn't take his product to get baked. Oh, dejectedly. Coming back, go back to the US Pavilion, I noticed there was a company selling ovens, big commercial ovens. Okay, anyway, these are big, long, flat ones. You can make pizza in it and all that. So I saw that, I said, "Does it work?" He said, "Well, it can work. All we need is something to bake, and then we have propane. You can run it by propane. You have something to bake, we'll buy the propane." Wow. So next morning, 7 o'clock, the show starts at 9. Walking into that big area, from the first floor, fresh pastries. You can smell it from the first floor. Your nose takes you up to the 4th floor. When you get up there, you go to that oven seller. He doesn't have signs. We didn't have signs, so out of a back of a cardboard box with magic marker, for samples, go to Hawaii booth with an arrow. We became the hit of the whole show. The next year was in Shanghai. The organizers came up to us and said, "We want you in Shanghai. You can be the front, center, whatever you want. We'll put you guys right in the middle. And we won't charge you guys," because that was a big hit. We had 3 days, 25,000 people per day. Hawaii's booth had lines all around. We're giving candies, we're giving juice. We say, aloha made juice. We had all kinds of stuff. But we're the only ones. A lot of places I'm going around, I wanted to taste wine. People selling wine. You had to have a special badge, because they're only giving samples to people that can buy wine. I'm nobody, so I said, "Sorry, can't give you samples." But we gave it to everyone. And that was a big success. So anyway, from small beginnings, they opened up a state-of-the-art factory out in Italy where it goes on, by the time it gets down to the bottom, it's frozen, the dough is frozen, it's boxed, put right into the 40-foot freezer container, and then it goes to Hong Kong for distribution. That lady became rich and famous immediately because instead of, I lost the account, they decided to distribute to Asia from Hong Kong. But then Hawaii couldn't support the demand, so they moved to the mainland. And but that's a terrific success story from one of these trade shows. You could be the next success story as well. Okay. This is a Hawaiian host booth in Hawaiian Sun. Terai Izumi. He brought his Chinese agent there, this girl and the guy, just to help him out. Also, again, when you go to Asia, any country, put it in their language. You can't assume that they know English. So we put everything in that language and pass it out. Yeah. Next. Okay, this is Neil again. Of course, he asked the girls, when you finish, can I have the moo-moos back? Because I got to use it for the next show. But they were really good. They were briefed as to what the product was, how much they sell it for. And we had a lot of fun. And when we had a show in Fukuoka with a representative say, we had something similar, booths all around. And then my booth, we had flowers, cut flowers, we had macadamia nuts, we had some juices, giving out samples. The night before, they were in my room cutting up pineapples for samples, to give out samples. So we were very popular. The only thing is that next door, right around the corner, we had a Hawaiian host booth. And the manager there is from Hawaii, but he lives in Japan. Hey, Suzuki, he grabs one of the girls that was with me. He said, you get too many girls, I want one. And then I said, wait, take this one, not take that one. I said, what's wrong? He said, that's the president, the shacho, the president's daughter. She's just learning. But, she's saying, no, that's okay. This president's daughter, who didn't know anything about this kind of international stuff, she learned really fast. And boy, she told her father back home, I want to go to the next show again. But, we had a lot of fun selling Hawaii products. Okay. The last story is about plants. We had a group from Okinawa. They have a pineapple park in Okinawa. And it was just pineapple, rows and rows of pineapple, kind of boring. And then at the end, there's a gift shop. You can buy any kind of product, pineapple bread, pineapple jam, all kinds of stuff, but had no color. This is a picture of a cart. It looks like a pineapple on top. It's a golf cart. And then they put in the tape with whatever language you want. On the left is this, on the right is that. So they came to Hawaii. This was in 2020. And again, they didn't speak English, so I took them to a hybridizer in Hilo. And this is the daughter of the hybridizer. She's the manager of the company. So she has to clean it to make sure there are no bugs and no roots either. You have to send it bare root. But these bromeliads will grow. Once you take out the roots, but you can stick it back in the ground, and it'll re-root. So they first order was 3,000 plants. Took them 2 months to develop the 2,000 plants. But we got them all, sent it, became very popular. Next year, and they said, we have a demand to know what the name of it. And I told the guy, I said, every plant we shipped had a name inside. In the cleaning, setting up and planting it, we lost it. So can you come to Okinawa? I go, what? Oh, we'll pay you for your airfare and your hotel. Bring your wife, and then tell the grower, bring his wife. So we went and spent 3 days naming all these plants. And they had them all over the place, up on walls, growing all that kind of stuff. And then that year, they had 2 orders, almost 6,000 plants. And then over the next several years, because Okinawa gets a lot of typhoons, so a lot of the plants get knocked down. But for us, terrific. They want new varieties, they want colorful kinds. You see how bright the reds are. And so they continue. I think the last order was a couple of years ago, but it's been a while. But I'm saying that things can catch on. You never think that they would buy bromeliads, especially from Hawaii. And they're available, all around the world. But they liked this variety. So, I guess, running over time. Any questions? Just keep an open mind. But the last thing you think about is getting your product shipped. Sometimes you have to know, if you have a product, what can you do to getting your product to market. And in one of these discussions, I had a lady from Kauai, and she had a doggy bakery selling dog cookies. And she had about 20 customers on the mainland. And she would, working out of Hanapepe, the small store. So she wanted to know if there's a better way. She was using those flat rate boxes you can buy. You pay $16 for medium, I would say $19 for large. The post office provides you with boxes and everything else. So I did a study for her. I went to UPS, tried to compare. Even with a discounted rate, you couldn't beat that flat rate box. And the thing would last 2-3 days to any place on the mainland. And so I told him, your system is really good. You have less costs. You don't have to buy your own packaging. And everything fits because she didn't have a big bakery. In other words, her production was limited. So whatever she could make, she would ship every day. And the post office would pick them up every day. So that's always a good, something like that. Yes, sir.
I have a question on air cargo internationally. Are there any limitations on shipment of alcohol, specifically distilled spirits, so high proof alcohol?
Yes. There is no restrictions, meaning that we have to, it can be flammable, liquid, depending on the type of, you see the 90 proof or whatever. We have to work with FAA to get that approved. But more than that, you got to go to the buyer. They may have, different restrictions on importing of alcohol. Downstairs here, at this warehouse, you find racks and racks of liquor, alcohol. Why is it stored in the foreign trade zone? Because a lot of stuff comes from foreign, from, Irish whiskey or whatever. It comes in, imported, but it's sold by the duty-free shop, and it leaves. So they don't want to pay all the taxes for the state, federal government, because this is not, the warehouse is not part of the U.S. So they bring it in, store it there, and then as somebody buys it, they send it to the airport and goes out. So at any rate, they are, different things, but you have to work with the buyer to get that. Yes? Yeah.
We're about to sell in Japan for the first time.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
We're about to sell in Japan
Yes.
for the first time, and we have not gotten to shipping yet.
Mm-hmm.
And our show is actually in July at Hankyu. So what would you, they said we could do hand carry on the plane, but I'm confused about customs. What would you suggest that we do?
Well, if you are, oh yeah, the question was they have a show in July, and when you say Hankyu, are you talking about the Osaka region? Okay, is that something sanctioned by the DBED or Department of Ag? Okay, and they just want you to show your product over there. Okay, then you have to go through customs. If you say they're selling it, you got to work with them. Hankyu is a big company. As a matter of fact, I'm Hankyu reps for the cargo side here in the Hawaii. One of the guys, in one of the slides, there was a picture of a Hankyu rep. This is another side story, but I was first introduced to Hankyu 35 years ago because I needed to get a relationship in different parts of Asia. So they sent me a sales rep in Osaka. I met him, and then that sales rep, 30 years later, became the president of Hankyu Cargo. Because he could speak English, he traveled all around the world. He did a lot of things, and he became the president of the company. So anyway, the question was what you need to do. I would say work with them. If they're going to be an importer, you're going to have to pay a tax based on that person's license. If they're going to resell it and they have a retail license. Now, if they didn't have a retail license, right at customs, you're going to have to pay the sales tax. They're going to collect the sales tax either from the retailer in Japan or from your shipment when it lands. So there's a lot of issues on that. So you need to work with, maybe you can talk to me later about the details. Yeah.
Can I ask a question on behalf of the audience who might not be familiar with shipping or anything? What is a freight forwarder?
Good question. Freight forwarder, whether it's ocean or air, we're agents. We have to act as though we are a carrier. We do all the TSA, FAA security checks. We do all that kind of stuff for the airlines. Okay, but we don't have planes. That's why we have integrators that have planes and they have, pickup, delivery, and everything else. But on the other hand, we are forwarders. We don't have our own aircraft, and I use all the different scheduled flights, and then I shop around too because, like every month we got to keep up with the fuel surcharge, and some fuel charge might be as much as 90 cents a kilo. That's 45 cents a pound. That's a lot of money. So we need to make sure that we keep up, and then, we shop around just so that our customers will save money. Okay.
So if somebody wants to ship, say, something from Maui to Osaka, they can call you or email you, and what information do you need from them in order for you to give them a good quotation?
Okay. We need the pieces of commodity, pieces, weight, measurements if you have of the box, because then we get into the dimensional weight or actual weight for charges. And then they might be able to, neighbor islands are pretty good about dropping it off. And we have agents on all islands. They are not allowed to take it directly to the airlines unless they are working with the airlines. If you're working with JL and then you go to Kona, you can take it directly. But JL, they really don't like to take it from individuals because they don't want to have to do all the documentation and get into that. So they usually give us a special price so that we can give you a discount, and then we will do all the documentation, take it to our agent on Maui. We ship Maui pine out of there going to Japan, but we do, and they have it all security checked. We're trying to protect the traveling public, so we got to make sure nobody can put a bomb on the plane. So every piece or every ounce of freight going on any aircraft has to be checked. And so it does spend some time, which we have to do that. It's pretty secure. We had one incident a few months back where we shut down there. I didn't realize that we were shipping 100-pound bags of green coffee beans from Kona. It was going on Korean Airlines to Tokyo. A lot of roasters, a lot of coffee companies like to roast their own, make their own mixture, and 100% Kona coffee is very expensive, but they would buy the Kona coffee beans, mix it themselves. So it got to Korean Airlines, which is handled by Aloha Air Cargo. We brought it in from Hilo to Honolulu, actually Kona to Honolulu, and then it was prepared to be loaded. And then, like I say, they double-checked everything. The dog came, the bomb threat dog, and then the dogs are really sharp. They just sit next to the bag, the pallet of bag, and you try to pull them away, they won't move. So something's in the bag that's stringing the dog. So what happened is that the inspector started to look. They have a probe that can go into the burlap bag, pull out some green beans. They checked it all out, couldn't figure out what it was, so they evacuated. 3-hour evacuation, all that area of the airport. Next thing you know, they closed it back. Then the sales rep from Aloha called me, "Brian, it was your freight." I go, "What?" Because I heard about the evacuation. What's going on? Then they said, then I talked to the inspector, TSA guy, the dog guy. He says, we're going to have to retrain all our dogs. We don't know why it was sensing a bomb. I said, "You don't have to train." I said, "Why?" The shipper is a coffee mill. They big company, big operation. I bet you anything, the burlap bag is stored next to fertilizer. Fertilizer makes bombs. The guy go, "What?" So they took the next flight out to that supplier in Kona. Sure enough, so they said, that burlap bag was stored too close to the fertilizer, and that triggered out. They come back, call me up. Oh, you saved us a lot of money because we had to retrain all of our animals. So things like that, we have to make sure whatever gets on the plane is safe for the traveling public. Yeah. Okay.
I went back to your slide because I just want to point out, I've seen this many times in my career. People who are just starting shipping internationally are not familiar with the Incoterms that they have worked out with the buyer and themselves. And Incoterms are international consolidation terms. I can't remember what it stands for. But these are the key points here. For example, X-Works, FCA, CPT, CIP. These are the Incoterms themselves. FOB is very common. CIF is very common. Get to know what these mean, because this is where the transfer of risk and responsibility between you and the buyer takes place, right? So for example, X-Works, if your Incoterms are X-Works, that means the buyer is responsible for everything from your shipping point to the time it gets to the buyer, right? Whereas down here it's different. CIF would mean you as the seller, you're responsible for most of the risk and the cost of the shipment, if you will. So you have to work on these with your buyer. And I've seen this get screwed up many, many times, and both sides of the equation wind up not happy with the entire transaction. So try to understand that. And then the freight forwarder or the shipping company needs to understand what is the contract you have with the seller and the buyer. This is a very critical point that I think a lot of companies don't pay attention to, particularly at the beginning of their international shipping careers.
Same thing, you might have heard of letter of credit. And that's another thing. The risk is to the buyer when you have a letter of credit, because basically they tell you to ship it by this date, in this manner, to who you give it to whom you give it to, and all that. Everything is done, and once you follow the instructions, they can go to the bank. The letter of credit is filed with your banker, and then once you get everything, you get copies of your air bill or shipping bill, give it to the bank, the money is transferred to your account. The shipment hasn't even left yet, so the risk is all on the buyer for letter of credit. And before we couldn't do it, but today, with the help of DBED, and you can get certain checks on customers. That's another thing. By the way, you get to thank DBED, Jamie back there, because we used to charge $300 for classes per student, but now they pick up the charge so you folks can get it for free. But they have a lot of good classes, and HPEC, Hawaii Pacific Export Council. I've been retired from that a long time ago, but I was always around. Okay, any other questions other than that? Okay, Rob.
Here's Brian's contact information. We'll be around. Brian will stay after, and we can discuss with him if you have any questions about shipping. Before we move on, are there any further questions for Brian?
I got a question. I was comparing shipping prices between Asia and here. I found that it costs maybe a fifth of the price to ship to LA than it does to ship out over here. The shipping to LA is like $50 to CBM, where it's $250 over here. What's the reason for that? And is there any way to get that price down?
Okay, I don't know if you've been reading the paper, but you have what we call a Jones Act that's there. Okay, what the Jones Act does is it protects U.S. carriers from foreign intervention. Just imagine if there wasn't a Jones Act, you have a lot of imports that's going, a whole container ship. Let's say a Japanese company, NYK, might have everything going to LA, but they have only half full container. I mean, a ship is only half full going back to Japan. So what they do is they offer themselves, hey, I can come to Honolulu, I can give you half the price. Everybody would welcome it, but they don't pay for all the infrastructure that Matson and South Brothers and the Acacia like that. They have to keep up the harbor, but these guys come and go, and so the Jones Act in many ways protects that kind of stuff. It does more than just restrict foreign carriers from carrying things between two American ports. So if you're going from LA, the ship goes from LA to Honolulu, it's two American ports, even though they may not carry cargo, but just to pick up something from here, that's illegal. So to protect that, but you can give it to a foreign carrier from here that's going back, but it's not worth their while to make it a stop. So it's hard to get, on something last minute, but you can go to Columbus Lines or NYK, they can get you a rate, but most of the time, they don't have a consolidation type rate, so you got to buy a whole container. And yes, it could be cheaper. So if your buyer has other things they're buying from, say, the mainland or from even Hawaii, you can have a container spotted at somebody and then you can load up. We had one buyer buying from 3 companies on Oahu. 2 companies from Oahu, one from Kona. The Kona would ship it here. The container would be staged at one customer, and he would load the whole container, the 40-foot container. And they would get it over there because you get a container rate, a lot cheaper. But the point is that the rates between Hawaii and, say, Japan going back by boat, it's not always that favorable to our exporters. And so anyway, yeah. But I know we use FedEx and UPS a lot, not necessarily for packages. We use the airplane because they have a cargo division, and then we use UPS cargo to send things international because they give us a good rate too for certain cities. Anyway, okay, Rob, you want to take a break or?
No, we'll jump right into Peter. Another just quick point I would make, Brian touched on it briefly with weights, talking about kilograms, but if you're starting to ship internationally, please get used to kilograms and centimeters and millimeters and these types of things because nobody else uses it in the world. I've lived a lot of my adult life in foreign countries, and when you are speaking to people in Japan, for example, or Singapore or Germany about pounds, their eyes just glaze over. They don't really understand what that is, and it's the same with inches and feet and yards and these kinds of things. So there's a lot of room for error if you're speaking with your buyer or even your freight forwarder about inches and pounds. So it's better to just get used to kilograms and centimeter system. Okay, with that, I'm going to jump into Peter's presentation on UPS specifically.
Do you folks in the back hear me okay? Okay, great. I prefer not to use a microphone. Well, thank you folks for the time today. I know we all have busy schedules, so I appreciate you coming to this meeting and hearing a little bit more about how UPS can help you folks ship internationally. I'm going to get quite a bit into the weeds about what we can do for you and the specifics, so I'm going to be sharing a lot of information. So I don't mind if you raise your hand in the middle of my presentation and ask questions. I would rather you ask it now, and I can address it for you. I don't mind, and it kind of gives me a break from talking too, because I don't want to bore anybody too much. Right? So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into it right away. Just a little bit of an introduction about myself. Again, my name is Peter Stoms. I was born and raised here on Oahu and graduated from MidPac and then attended Oregon State University in the Northwest, and I graduated from there and got my master's then after that and started working for UPS in Oregon in 2007 and then had the opportunity to move back home to Hawaii in 2012, and I've been here ever since. So going on probably 13 years now with UPS. So my experience with UPS, I've always been in the small parcel division. So it's a little bit different than Brian's in that the small parcel division is non-palletized movements. Your typical brown boxes, anything from a letter to a brown box. The max weight on a brown box can be 150 pounds. That's our highest weight each individual box can weigh. But your total shipment weight can be as much as you want it to be. But there is always a sweet spot where moving with somebody like our freight division or Brian's company will be more cost effective in the higher weight brackets versus moving small parcel, non-palletized. So why are we meeting here today? We're talking about going global, right? The reality of today's market is that the domestic market is oversaturated. So businesses such as yourselves are looking for other ways to grow top-line revenue. So the reality is 95% of the consumers live outside of the United States. So now is the time to take your product global and grow that top-line revenue. Next slide. This map just really quick puts things into perspective of what the consumer markets look like out of the U.S. population. As you can see, there's strengths in numbers, and those strengths are obviously consumers, right? So your target market should be focused outside of the U.S. And we're very good at working internally with identifying your product and then identifying a target market for you internationally. Kind of marrying you up with some vendors as well to buy your product, whether you're going B2B or B2C. A lot of first places that we often use as a line of attack for international, for businesses looking to sell international, is usually Canada, because they're our neighbor to the north of the US 48, right? Just a little bit of a summary of UPS's reach and capabilities so you know the size and scope of our business. Basically, UPS is a one-stop shop. We can simplify shipping with a single source that can handle anything from the smallest to the largest shipments. We can ship anything from a letter through our parcel services, and we can we've even worked with the military to ship a helicopter overseas with our freight forwarding division. So we basically have you covered for all modes of transportation, domestic or international. Our international services go to over 220 countries and territories worldwide. And we keep control of your product in our network by utilizing as much of our asset-based supply chain as well. We're also the largest broker in the world. So the nice thing is with that is that if you choose to use UPS to broker your product going over international borders, it stays in our control the entire time, which allows for a quicker customs clearance. So UPS's global reach, what we try to do is make, UPS makes life much simpler for global companies. So quite simply put, we deliver over 18 million packages per day. I think we're actually at 20 million now. We have our own aircraft fleet of over 230 planes, and we have over 500 aircraft operating on our behalf, because just like Brian's company, we also lease jets out and lease space in bellies of jets, depending on which division of our business we're referring to. Like our freight forwarding division will lease space on bellies of jets in commercial airlines. There's close to over 100,000 UPS branded vehicles on the street every day. Our company has a global presence, and through UPS you will as well. Basically you can look at UPS as an extension of your business, because we understand the importance of giving your customers that highest level of service in the transportation industry, because again, we are an extension of your business. Our offer to you is very simple. Let UPS undertake the fixed capital investment, being all of our assets, to provide you with the business infrastructure and supply chain needed to go globally, allowing you to focus on selling your product globally, international markets. Next slide. So on the small parcel side, this is a basic summary of our services. Just like our domestic packages, international packages have options, ranges as well, depending on your needs and the urgency behind your shipments. So it can be anything from a same-day service to a specific date scheduled delivery. All of our services on the small parcel side are guaranteed. So that means that if it is UPS's fault that your package ends up being late, you can request your money back. So that is a lot of additional security by using our small parcel service. UPS Critical is another service that we do offer that is not listed on this slide. It is basically our white glove service. Businesses that tend to use UPS Critical are the military or pharmaceutical companies or bio companies that are shipping, human tissue and whatnot, where it is of the utmost importance to get that package to the receiver as quickly as possible. With UPS Critical, we'll even pay a UPS employee to hand carry that package on a jet and deliver it to the final destination to assure that it's in complete control of us and gets delivered as quickly as possible. On the next slide, we'll take a look at what happens behind the scenes after your package is picked up by UPS.
When you're ready to ship a package, you often bring it to a UPS store like this one. But what happens to your package after you drop it off? Let's find out. Last year, UPS, the world's largest package delivery company, delivered over 3.5 billion packages around the world. That's almost 15 million parcels, letters, and documents a day. HiSTEP Works recently paid a visit to Louisville, Kentucky, the site of Worldport, UPS's main air shipping terminal. Worldport sorts nearly 1 million packages a day. Before the packages get here, they have a couple of steps to go through. Once your package is in the hands of UPS, an employee fixes a smart label containing all of its shipping information. Then an employee scans the label into a system that tracks it every step of the way. Next, it's off to a local UPS center for what you might call a mini sorting. Employees quickly prepare overnight packages traveling under 200 miles. They pack up packages traveling farther than that into a UPS shipping pod. Then a plane flies them onto Worldport or another regional gateway. Opened in 2002, Worldport covers 550 acres and sorts about 300,000 packages per hour, most between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. And while computers do almost all of the actual sorting, it still takes roughly 4,000 employees to make things work. Every night, employees at Worldport sort the contents of nearly 100 planes and 500 big rigs. Once the planes dock, workers move the pods into the buildings. Each pod weighs up to 2,000 pounds, but thanks to custom caster flooring, 2 people can move them. Human hands touch a typical package only twice while at Worldport, during pod loading and unloading. Computers control every other step. Essentially, the unloader's main job is to make sure the package goes on the conveyor belt label side up. This way, as each package passes through a tunnel, a camera can scan, photograph, and catalog the label into a database. At the same time, sensors weigh and measure the box. The shape and weight of each package determines which of 3 systems the package enters: parcels, smalls, or irregulars. This information also regulates the speed of the conveyor belts and the spacing between the packages. The packages then go down a maze of 17,000 different conveyor belts, totaling over 122 miles. This intricate and highly organized process quickly screens, scans, and sorts packages, grouping them by ever narrower location divisions: country, state, city, and zip code, sometimes even down to the street or block. Despite all these levels of intricacy, most packages are in and out of the building in less than 15 minutes. Now that the packages are thoroughly organized, employees hand-pack them into the proper pods and load them back onto the plane. Then they're flown out. The Operations Planning Control Room at Worldport coordinates each pod's delivery location, sending planes out to local and regional service centers all around America and the world. Once they arrive, employees unpack the pods and load the packages into the more than 90,000 cars, trucks, motorcycles, and other assorted vehicles that UPS uses to make their deliveries. Finally, a UPS driver scans the smart label to finish the delivery and let everyone know that the package has officially arrived. So now you've seen the whole process, from the store to the door. I'm Marshall Brain, and that's how UPS works.
The store to the door, is that your,
That was from the UPS store, that's fine.
cool.
All right, so shipping internationally can
Sorry. I knew that was gonna happen.
Shipping internationally can oftentimes be very intimidating because it's a little more complex than shipping domestically when it comes to preparing customs paperwork. So what's very important to us is that we offer a UPS International Welcome Program. And when you become a new international shipper, we guide you through your first 12 weeks of international shipping through our UPS International Welcome Program. I'm actually a huge fan of this program, and I sign all my new international shippers up on this program. It was launched in 2007, so it's been around for some time, and it has grown to be very popular among international shippers. The International Welcome Program is designed to actively train, support, and nurture you for 12 weeks, basically allowing you to become much more confident in processing your international shipments so that you're there confident to do it on your own moving forward. We do have a dedicated sales resource team to help you, and they're available via phone, and then you obviously have me as well to support you with any questions that you have. Next slide. UPS brokerage, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the presentation. 97% of all our packages are cleared the same day. We have one of the highest rankings amongst brokerages internationally around the world. The transportation rate you pay with UPS Small Parcel does include your brokerage service. You do have a choice to choose your own broker if you want, but again, we will then pass your package on to a broker to have that package cleared. And again, once we pass that package on to be cleared by another broker, we lack control, but you're welcome to do that if that is your preference.
Can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
Can you explain to the audience who's not shipped internationally before, what is a broker? What does a broker do? Why do you need a broker?
Sure. A broker is basically there to work with that country's customs. They're pretty much a middleman, and they help to work with customs to assess an accurate duty and taxes on your package prior to allowing it to pass that country's borders. So there's something that is a necessity. There's no way around it. But again, with UPS, we try to make things as simple as possible. And we do have the largest brokerage in the world. And we have some of the highest rankings with clearing packages as quickly as possible. And the charge is included in your international transportation costs. So we take care of the details from completing initial assessments, duties, fees, local laws, to helping with licensing processes. We clear the shipments at the destination so you can focus on your international growth. And that includes navigating the complex world of government agencies, each with their own specific sets of rules and regulations. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little further about UPS brokerage. We have a 98% compliance rating, which means we have the customs credentials and expertise to help your business reduce mistakes and avoid errors. The size of your business shouldn't determine your length of your reach. Allow us to take care of that work for you. Partners with us, move your products more places with fewer delays. As one of the world's largest customs brokers, will help you to navigate those challenging regulations, clarify trade intricacies, maintain compliance, and keep your shipments moving through customs and across borders. We're again here to gain your confidence and give you that competitive advantage against your competition. This is the next slide is a very simple illustration that shows you the steps that your package will go through from pickup to delivery. So essentially that typical brown truck that we see always on the roads will pick up your package, and then it will be transferred to the UPS hub where there's a UPS ODC. ODC stands for Origin Data Capture, and at that point is where the paperwork is confirmed to minimize customs holds. What we always want to try to avoid when shipping internationally is customs holds, because once the government gets the hands on your package, we're all at their mercy.
And customs is different all over the world. That's one of the reasons why you hear things about in the news about free trade agreements and what have you. If the United States has a free trade agreement with, say, Singapore, that means shipping a product to Singapore is infinitely easier than shipping a product to, say, Japan or particularly Brazil, where customs in Brazil is quite powerful and will hold up shipments while everything is inspected and they're looking for potential taxes that they can charge and what have you. If we have a free trade agreement with Singapore, products just get into Singapore incredibly quickly, and the customs there for products originating from the USA because of the free trade agreement is just very, very quick, right? So that's why free trade agreements can be greatly simplify the logistics situation.
And keep in mind too that the ultimate goal for customs is really their revenue generator for that country. They're there to make money based on the goods that are being brought into that country. So it's very important that the paperwork is done accurately, that customs has to review. So we'll get into a little more detail on that in some future slides as well. UPS paperless invoice, I'm going to be talking about that now. So it's unique to UPS, and it is patented technology. With UPS paperless invoice, you eliminate the need for 3 commercial paper invoices on a package. The current process, if you do not have UPS paperless invoice, this goes for all carriers like FedEx and DHL as well. You have to print out 3 copies of your commercial invoice. The commercial invoice is there for customs purposes. That is the document they're going to be reading to see what kind of product and how much of that product and the value of that product that you're bringing in. So 3 copies of that commercial invoice are going to be signed and dated by an individual at your representative at your business. And those 3 invoices are in a transparent pouch that is stuck to the side of your package that is then traveling internationally. This leaves you at risk for the pouch being pulled off of the side of the box while it's in transit. So our goal at UPS, again, is to try to make things as smooth as possible while your package is in transit. One of those ways is through UPS paperless invoice. And it is up to 50% reduction in customs holds. The next slide gives you a sample of what a UPS paperless invoice looks like. UPS has essentially eliminated the paperwork and time associated with processing an international shipment through a UPS paperless invoice. So 2 smart labels, those are pictures of smart labels there on the screen, will be printed out with PLD. PLD stands for package level detail. That's your first label, and then your second label, which prints out it with a barcode on it. That barcode is actually your paperless invoice. So instead of having 3 hard copies that print out from a laser printer that you have to sign and date, it's all electronically uploaded to our satellites and then sent even before your package leaves Hawaii. All that information is electronically sent to that customs, wherever that country is that you're going to. So before your package takes off and leaves Honolulu Airport, that customs already knows what's coming, what's in it, what's it made out of, what's the value, and how many of those items are in that box. So that when that product arrives at that customs doorstep, it literally just walks on through. We try to make it as efficient and seamless as possible. There's 3 important things that you always want to remember when you're filling out your paperwork, being the commercial invoice. It's very critical that it is filled out accurately. And there's 3 questions you want to always ask yourself in relation to the commercial invoice that will help you to lessen the chance of a customs hold due to a lack of description of your product. And those 3 things are: what is it made out of, and what is it used for? If your description of your product can answer those 3 questions, then there's a very small chance that your product is going to be held at customs when it moves over the border. So an example of that would be if you're trying to ship a men's collared shirt that's casual business attire. What is it? It's a men's collared shirt. What is it made out of? An example would be cotton. And what is it used for? Casual business attire. So that's just an example of what that description and answering those 3 questions would look like to assure that that package doesn't get held when it's moving over customs borders. On the next slide, we'll talk about our suite of Quantum View managed solutions. These are free solutions to you folks that UPS provides because we're a true believer in if we provide you the technology and the information at your fingertips and we don't charge for it, that's going to encourage you to utilize us more and be your carrier of choice. So Quantum View Notify, when a package has been shipped, if there's an exception, it will notify the receiver of the delay, and this reduces inbound calls to you as the shipper from your customer asking where my package is. So that's essentially when you're processing your package on our software called WorldShip, you can input somebody's phone number or their email address, and they will receive updates along the way while their package is in transit, such as when the package was processed, when it's out for delivery, and if there's any exceptions that would change that delivery date along the line. Quantum View data is really for the shipper's benefit, if you will. They're basically data files of your shipment history that allows you to run queries and reports to keep you informed and allows you to design next steps to keep your business on track. Quantum View Manage is a tracking tool. I describe it as being similar to the dashboard of your car, and it provides you clear visibility of your entire supply chain, whether your packages are being shipped via small parcel, freight, or via our freight forwarding services domestically, internationally, whether it's inbound to you, outbound to your receivers, a third-party shipment, an import shipment, or an export shipment. And it's all clearly visible The next slide actually shows you it's kind of hard to read, I think. Oh, it's not too bad. But basically at the top here, you have your summary of your outbound shipments. So as you can see, it'll show you how many packages have been manifested based on that date range at the top, how many packages are in transit, how many are out for delivery, how many exceptions you have, how many have been delivered, voided, and your totals. And then this section below here is your shipment details. Basically anything in blue you can click on and it goes into further detail is in relation to the specifics on that particular package. Every package has a unique tracking number.
What would that mean under UPS account? Forwarding, package, or freight? What would be the difference there?
So small parcel is what I deal with. That's your 1 to 150 pound brown boxes that are non-palletized that ship domestically and internationally. Freight is those big trucks that you see on freeways, the semis with trailers attached to them. And freight forwarding is our air and ocean freight division for your domestic and small package needs. So those are your ocean division is like we will contract with Matson and put containers with Matson. Or air freight is basically palletized heavy movements, similar to what Brian.
You mentioned the word palletized a few times. Do you want to briefly just explain what that is for people who've never palletized the product?
Sure. A pallet is just that wooden crate that you see a lot of boxes placed on top of. Oftentimes they're shrink wrapped and strapped to the pallet. The reason for having a pallet, it ensures additional integrity to the product that's inside the boxes. So sometimes people use pallets if they're shipping thousands of pounds of a product, or sometimes they use a pallet if they're shipping something that's real fragile, like champagne glasses or something like that. So that's something to always keep in mind when you're thinking about the product you're selling is in a small package, small parcel environment in my specialty, you got to remember your boxes are traveling on conveyor belts. You know, they're going to be handled by a human and, you know, they may fall or drop a foot or two. So you always want to make sure you have sufficient packaging, but not only that, you want to make sure that your commodity type can withstand that kind of environment. We have a very low rating of damages as long as the package is as long as the parcel is packaged properly with cushioning. But as I was saying, that's where the importance of a pallet comes in, or using freight forwarding or freight services, because again, it can provide additional integrity to protect that commodity type should it be fragile.
And just a question or point. International, you have to use a pallet that's certified. I don't know if you ever noticed, you see pallets stacked up. If it's wooden, you need to have a brand on there that says it's been treated. It's for a wood-boring bug that's prevalent and can travel international because they don't want it. Whenever you have a freight put on a pallet, when it's going international, we have to make sure that you see the plastic or plywood they accept. But if it's solid wood, you gotta have the brand on it.
Very good point.
And also, when you say proper packaging, I hate to say it, I went to a class many years ago, but then the proper packaging is we have a box. If it can withstand a drop of 4 feet, that's proper packaging. And that's why you see a lot of TVs with all those cushioning, styrofoam, etc. But you have to make sure that it'll withstand that drop. Otherwise, you have no claim if somebody drops it along the way.
That is correct. Thank you, Brian. Excuse me. On the next slide here, we're going to talk about tradability. So whether it's UPS paperless invoice, QuantumView Notify, QuantumView Data, or QuantumView Manage, or tradability, all of these resources are provided to you by UPS at no cost. Again, we see it as a benefit to us because the more familiar you get with us and our services and our technology, we hope that that creates more shipments for UPS. Another resource that's available to you is UPS Tradability. It simply gives you free access to regulations and forms as well as estimates of landed costs before shipments even leave the dock. UPS Tradability is a value-added service provided on ups.com. All you need to do is have a UPS account number and password and you have access to that service. UPS Tradability keeps you up to date with customs-related regulations and tariffs to help you steer clear of potential issues, because again, we want to avoid those customs holds.
The people updating that website must be very busy lately then with all these tariff changes.
Actually, UPS spends an average of $1 billion a year on technology for basically our consumers' benefit and internally to provide you folks with the best level of service that we can. So we take it very serious. This is a suite of information-based services for a savvy international shipper, and it helps you confidently manage the movement of your goods in a timely and efficient and compliant manner. It can help you improve regulatory compliance, reduce operating expenses, and streamline your trade process and your global supply chain. It allows you to receive global information updated on a timely basis, to Rob's point, and stay in the know on the new security compliance initiatives, trade agreements, customs regulations, duty rates, and import and export processes. All right. On the next slide, so what is the international consumer experience? In other words, what are international consumers looking for? UPS spends a considerable amount of capital doing research with international consumers as well as domestic consumers to basically understand where we need to head immediately as an organization to make sure we're meeting the needs of your consumers to help you grow your business, because if you grow, we grow. So 76% want a total cost of their order and a separate line item for duties and taxes. 73% of consumers want their price represented in their home currency. And 62% of consumers want options for speed and delivery. So if you're ever shopping on somebody's website, there is an example there to the right, and they're telling their consumers that they need to figure out their duties and taxes, and the business or the seller, also known as the shipper, isn't responsible for that. As a consumer, you can imagine that's not very attractive to buy from that business internationally, because they're basically putting all that homework and those tasks on the consumer in order for them to spend money at your business. So I'm going to show you a solution on the next slide that can assist with this to really make your website feel like a home for that international consumer. So this is a picture of what iGlobal has to offer you folks should you be interested in it. iGlobal is a separate business from UPS. However, we are partnered with iGlobal, and we are the only carrier partnered with them. And what they do is they help customers increase their international sales. And that's what we're all trying to do here. iGlobal Stores is a single point of interface to everything necessary for cross-border e-commerce success. When you log into iGlobal Stores, you are logging into proprietary technology developed by experts in the international e-commerce arena. You receive fraud control, real-time shipping rates, accurate landed costs with assimilated products, codes, carrier fees, delivery statuses, printing labels, profit margins, and landed costs. Basically, all of those top areas of interest that international consumers are looking for. UPS does have a program to help minimize that cost for iGlobal. Obviously, it's completely up to you. I think really iGlobal comes into a lot of play as well when you're dealing with a lot of different product SKUs. But essentially, you can get it for a reduced cost at $99 a month through our CTP program, which stands for our Customer Technology Program. But again, it has been very popular amongst our international shippers that are in their infancy stage, as well as well-versed in international shipping, because it just, when you land on that page, which we'll see actually on the next slide, Rob, it makes it very welcoming to an international buyer. As you can see here, it says, thanks for visiting Portugal. This software really helps your foreign buyers to feel welcome. It gives the consumers the option to prepay their duties and taxes in their local currencies, multiple payment options, as well as shipping options. And again, it's better to have them pay that duty and tax up front and be upfront about that with your consumer internationally, because the last thing you want to happen, which I've seen happen before, is that the consumer sees one cost on your website, which is your transportation cost, but then when the carrier tries to deliver it to your consumer in Germany or Japan, wherever they may be, the carrier is trying to collect a duty and tax at their doorstep in order to hand over that product. And from a consumer experience standpoint, That's the last thing you want, is here's your product, but before I can give it to you on your doorstep, you owe me $50 more. That was not previously known prior to purchasing the product. And as a business such as yourself, that can be very much a disadvantage. Number one, you're gonna have a bad consumer experience or customer experience. And number two, what sometimes happens is the customer is so upset in that moment, they say, you know what, I don't want the product. And they're gonna say, I refuse it. And then they're gonna call you and get a credit back. And then you as the business then have to decide, do I wanna destroy my product or do I wanna pay for the return shipping costs on the product? Obviously that's gonna result in high overhead costs and a total complete loss of margin. So keep that in mind as well, please. Here's another example of what actually one of our clients' websites look like with iGlobal. So you can see that it clearly states the cost of the product, it clearly states the cost of the shipment, and it clearly states the cost of duties and taxes. This is what your foreign consumer wants to see, and this will encourage them to make repurchases and come back to your website because they remember that experience they had. It was a seamless, transparent experience. And as you can see, the dollar amount, even though it's not a business, it's a U.S. business, the dollar amount is still shown in that country's currency as well. So they're not having to do a currency conversion to figure out what they're really paying. Excuse me. So at UPS, this is a little bit of a dated slide, but it still pertains to what we've recently done. This slide pertains to our Hong Kong lane because our Hong Kong lane is a little more of an emptier jet that's heading to Hong Kong, so we're looking to fill it up. So how we're looking to fill it up is we're willing to offer you a more competitive rate going to Hong Kong. Now we've opened the floodgates even further, and internationally speaking, we're offering more aggressive pricing internationally for your export shipments than we ever have in the past. That's going to all lanes, all countries, 220 of them. So I challenge you to give me a call. I am based here locally, obviously. I do have my business card on me, and you can always ask for one, and it has my cell phone and my email on it. But again, having me as a local representative here, I'm always here to help you folks out. The next slide. That really concludes my presentation. I hope you folks found the information to be very useful. Again, I'm always here to answer any questions that you folks have. As far as my territory goes and what my geographic territory looks like, I cover Hawaii to the airport. So it's a very dense area, so there's a lot of business on Oahu in that area, obviously. And then I cover the entire island of Kauai. My partner, Ryan Sakai, covers the backside, basically, west of the airport, Pearl City west, and then the backside of the Ko'olaus to Waimanalo. And then he covers all the outer islands as well.
Except for Kauai.
Except for Kauai, because I cover Kauai. So we're definitely here to support you folks, and we want to help you grow your business, because if you grow, we grow, and it's a win-win. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any specific questions for Peter from UPS? And are there, please.
You mentioned international shipping. I assume you're talking about some of your connections are to ship on ships. Is that only domestically to the mainland, or do you ship to Japan or to Australia or some other place? Because we can't ship anything to Australia from here.
We have international lanes to Australia via ship.
But that has to go to LA first.
Correct, yeah. Usually goes again, that's not my specialty.
Right. I was just.
But I can, if you want to get more specifics on those lanes, I can get you in touch with my freight forwarding representative, and she's.
But you do actually provide shipping that goes by ship to foreign destinations. That was really my question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So when you do this prepaid service for taxes and all this other stuff, we live in a dynamic world where the currency exchange may change. What happens to that? Who's responsible?
Well, basically, the duty and tax is captured at the moment when the shipment is processed. So at that point, it's pretty much locked in. So that's the rate you see there, which is usually an accurate estimate, is is then the rate that's captured there moving forward through the supply chain. Go ahead.
Again, it's just a similar question as before, but domestically, the company does not ship distilled spirits. Will you ship internationally? Only Federal Express, even the USPS won't do it. For samples or international shipments would be for that, not for large scale shipments, but can you ship alcohol samples overseas?
I think it's specific on type of alcohol that it is. What I would say is that let me give you my business card so that I can get your specifics, and then I can give you 100% accurate question or answer based on your question and the commodity type you have, what type of alcohol.
Another thing I've learned over the years of shipping lots of product internationally is that any shipping company, whether it's UPS or the companies that Brian would connect you with, is they like predictability very much. And if you are able to ship a certain amount of product every week or every month or twice a month or what have you, you're able to work with them and negotiate with them on getting rates that are much better than just a normal one-time rate. And that's a very important thing to consider when in shipping internationally. If you can develop a plan where you're shipping predictable amounts regularly, your shipping rates will go down considerably. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's basically the Costco model is how I describe it to my customers. You know, when you buy in bulk in Costco, you get a better price. And it's the same with shipping. Basically, the more you ship, the lower the rate you can obtain.
Rob, I have a point for those of you, most of you should know it, but there is everybody should know their product's harmonized number, system number, meaning that the harmonized number is international. So if you want to find out what the duty cost is in Japan for your product, every product that exists has a number in the world. So look it up on the internet. You can just harmonized system, find out what your product number is, and then from there you can find out what the duty rates in any country would be charging. So just a harmonized system of numbering.
It's referred to also as a harmonized tariff code. Harmonized tariff code. And to Brian's point, it's basically an international language that every country uses, which is nice for simplicity reasons. And to what Brian was also saying, it allows it allows customs to apply duties and taxes based on that harmonized tariff code. And it's very specific. So to your benefit as shippers, you always want to make sure your harmonized tariff code is accurate to your commodity type. Because if you aren't using an accurate harmonized tariff code, you could be under or overpaying duties and taxes, and if, God forbid, you got audited, it could be not the best for your business. So ideally, you want to always make sure your harmonized tariff codes are accurate and up to date.
In fact, I'll bring that up on here real quick.
That is another thing that Tradeability does as well, is allows you to narrow in on the specific harmonized tariff code for your product types also.
It's HTS.USITC.gov. And you could input, I don't know, what are you selling, cupcakes? Whatever your product is, there,
Put in like a t-shirt or
T-shirt, 100% cotton, all the different blends, they'll find it.
rayon.
well, you get the point. You can input, I don't know if we can just put machinery. This would be your code that they're talking about. And whatever you sell, you will have a code that has been determined and agreed upon internationally. That's your code. And this tells you, for example, it's free to ship it to these countries. And if you look, these are countries where generally the U.S. will have free trade agreements with Singapore, Canada, Mexico, Korea through Chorus, Australia. Pretty straightforward. Once you get used to these different codes, you'll understand it more clearly. I realize the first time you see it, it's a little overwhelming. But once you actually get into the database and explore it a little, things are rather clear and obvious. And then you really do understand the power of the free trade agreements once you start exploring these kinds of things, because you see how easy it is to ship product and how cheap it is to ship product to a free trade agreement country. Any further questions for shipping and logistics? Any online questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay, any final comments you'd like to make before we part?
Your industry, it's very exciting, so go with it. But by all means, take advantage of what your state offers, trade shows, all those things. By going, you get a different picture. You get to learn about the buyers, what they are buying from. Actually, going to like the gift show or even the Canton Fair, they have it twice a year. I've been to those shows, and boy, you have buyers from all around the world coming there. And then like the Canton Fair, everything that's made in China is there. And then you can look at all what they have. And so you know what you're up against if you're competing with some of the products. It's good to know what they're buying, where they're buying it from. If you have a product that you want to know if it's marketable in that country, there are a lot of different tips. And the HiSTEP, John Holman's office, they have a lot of information for you too, so contact the Pacific Export Council.
If you've been to any of our other seminars or heard me talk particularly about marketing or e-commerce, then you're going to hear it again. I'm going to tell you that free shipping is a very important driver in e-commerce today, meaning if you're able to say that your product ships free, you're going to get a lot more people clicking on the buy now option than if there's additional shipping charges and customs taxes and all of these other charges. If you're able to offer your customers just one price, and that includes shipping and international customs and brokerage fees and all of that, just one simple price, you're much, much more likely to be able to get a customer to click buy now. So please try to keep that in mind and work with guys like this ahead of time to figure out what is your shipping costs and what would be the customs fees going into Japan and what is local domestic transportation from Narita Airport to my customer in Chiba. Know that ahead of time. Don't wait until you get an order to figure that out. Work with these guys, show them what your product is, figure out a way to fit it into the right size box, all ahead of time. Don't wait until you actually have an order. That's probably the worst thing you can do, because I can almost guarantee you that first shipment or the first few shipments, you will not make any money and you'll probably lose money on it. So work with them ahead of time and try to figure out how to ship it as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. So your first shipment to Japan or wherever makes money for you. Okay, with that, we'll wrap it up. Let's say a nice big warm thank you to Brian Suzuki and Peter Stoms. We at Hawaii Pacific Export Council, we greatly appreciate their effort to come in here and speak with us today, and we hope you're able to use them in the future. So thank you both very much. With that, we'll wrap up. They'll be around to talk story for a few minutes, exchange business cards, talk about your products and services in the back. And there's still more food, so please clean up. Thank you, online audience, for joining as well.